According to the vice president, what makes this moment historic isn't just the agreement itself, it's how it happened. Forget the traditional channels, the endless diplomatic roundtables that produced little but frustration. Instead, Vance credits President Donald Trump for what he calls unconventional diplomacy. He says Trump did what no other world leader dared to do. He gave unprecedented authority to outsiders like Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, people who weren't career diplomats but deal makers. And somehow that gamble paid off. For the first time, the United States successfully united Israel and several Gulf Arab states under a shared vision to end the war, return the hostages, and build a lasting peace.
Well, I do, Kristen. We're going to have to do a lot of work to make sure that it stays ended. But I also have to give your network a little bit of grief, Kristen, because last night I was watching NBC. They were covering this, and they mentioned that during a rally last night in Israel, when Steve Witkoff, our great special envoy, mentioned Bibi Netanyahu, the crowd booed. But the broadcast didn't mention that when Steve Witkoff mentioned President Trump, the crowd actually cheered. And why is that, Kristen? Why did the crowd cheer? Because this moment came from very, very deliberate and consequential diplomacy from the president and the entire administration. The reason why we are at this moment, Kristen, is because the president of the United States, he gave unusual authorities to people who had never been in diplomacy before. He actually broke the mold. Instead of doing diplomacy the same old way that it had failed for the past 30 or 40 years, he gave Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner a remarkable amount of authority to go and get a peace deal done. And he worked hard on everybody from the Israelis to the Gulf Arab states to make this happen. This was very hard. This was a long time coming. It required a lot of work. But yes, I believe that we are on the cusp of peace in Gaza for the first time, not just in a couple of years, but really in a very long time, because the President of the United States has done something that no other world leader has been able to do: unite the Israelis with the Gulf Arab states for a common objective, and that is to bring the hostages home, to stop the war, and to build the kind of long-term settlement that we really do believe can lead to a lasting peace.
And of course, Vance explained that U.S. Central Command forces already stationed in the Middle East will only monitor the ceasefire and oversee humanitarian aid, not participate in combat or occupation. Instead of America leading with force, he says the administration is leading with influence. That's a strategic shift, a sign that Washington may finally be learning one of the hardest lessons in modern history. Peace imposed from outside rarely lasts. True stability must be built by those who live in the conflict zone. And here's where the story takes an interesting turn. According to Vance, several Muslim majority countries have volunteered to send their own troops to help secure Gaza. Think about what that means. Nations that once stood on opposite sides of political and religious divides are now willing to collaborate to protect a ceasefire. That's not just diplomacy. That's a reshaping of regional power dynamics. Could this mark the beginning of a new Arab-led peacekeeping era in the Middle East?
Missed something. We're not planning to put boots on the ground. What we already have is a U.S. Central Command. We already have people in that region of the world. They're going to monitor the terms of the ceasefire. They're going to monitor, ensure the humanitarian aid is flowing. They actually confirmed yesterday that Israel pulled back to the agreed upon lines, which of course is the first condition. The second condition, or the second term, is for the hostages to be released. So we have people in that region of the world who are going to monitor parts of this peace proposal, but the president is not planning to put boots on the ground in Israel.
If there is a shutdown, I think it would be a tremendously negative mark on the president of the United States.
They're not going to be talking who the head of the House was, the head of the Senate. I really think the pressure is on the president.
If you were president, what would you do?
Well, very simply, you have to get everybody in a room. You have to be a leader. The president has to lead. You have to get the people in a room, and you have to get a deal.
Both James Comey, the former FBI director, and Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, have been outspoken critics of Trump. So when indictments suddenly came down, right after Trump publicly urged Attorney General Pam Bondi to act, many saw it not as coincidence, but as retaliation. The question practically hung in the air: is this justice, or is it political revenge wrapped in legal language? Vance, of course, denied any political motivation. He argued that the cases were legitimate, that Comey lied under oath, and that Letitia James committed mortgage fraud. To him, this wasn't about politics. It was about accountability. But the problem is perception. When a sitting president calls for his opponents to be prosecuted, and then those prosecutions actually happen, it inevitably raises doubts about the independence of the justice system. Can justice still be blind when the loudest voice in the room belongs to the president himself? Still, Vance's defense carried conviction. He pointed out that Trump hasn't gone after other major political figures like Joe Biden, Barack Obama, or Hillary Clinton. Proof, he says, that the Department of Justice isn't acting out of vengeance, but according to evidence. It's a bold argument and one meant to contrast Trump's DOJ with Biden's, which Vance accused of targeting Trump during the last election cycle. In his view, this administration is doing the opposite, letting the law drive decisions, no matter how controversial the outcomes may appear.
Well, the president's looking at all of his options. Right now, he hasn't felt he needed to, but we have to remember, why are we talking about this, Kristen? Because crime has gotten out of control in our cities, because our ICE agents, the people who are enforcing our immigration laws, have faced a 1,000% increase in violent attacks against them. We have people right now who are going out there, who are doing the job the president asked them to do, who are enforcing our immigration laws. They're being assaulted, they're being beaten, they're being shot at. The problem here is not the Insurrection Act or whether we actually invoke it or not. The problem is the fact that the entire media in this country, cheered on by a few far-left lunatics, have made it okay to tee off on American law enforcement. We cannot accept that in the United States of America. Crime is down in Chicago and Portland often because they're so overwhelmed at the local level, they're not even keeping the statistics properly. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had an ICE office get shot at by a far-left assassin who was trying to kill our law enforcement officers. He fortunately didn't kill law enforcement officers. He did kill some other innocent people in the process. We cannot allow the far left in this country to tee off on our law enforcement officers. We've got to do something about it. And that's all the president's talking about. I mean, there are places in Chicago, Kristen, where people are afraid to take their children. They're afraid to go out of their houses for fear of gun violence, for fear of gang drive-by shootings. That's not okay in the United States of America. The president just wants people to be kept safe, and we're exploring everything that we can do to make sure that the American people are safe in their own country.